morning, Sai. How are you? I'm
Good-
Shakti from
uh,
Anuprayaas.
Hey Shakti, good morning. How are you?
I am good. Welcome to Anuprayaas. I will give you a small brief about us, and then we can start off. So, Anuprayaas is a social organization, and we work for people with disability in India, and we work majorly on accessibility of the public spaces. Here, we are starting a new series on our YouTube channel called in Celebrating Abilities. And we welcome you to our show here today. Thank you so much for joining us today here.
Shakti, thank you so much. I really appreciate the initiative and I look forward to this conversation.
So, for my audience, I will give a brief view about Sai first. Sai was born with physical disability in India, but that has not, stopped him for conquering whatever he has achieved in life. He's a technology risk consultant in Deloitte right now. He has done his education from CBIT in Hyderabad, and then he went for on a research scholarship to US with the University of Wisconsin. Came back, did his MBA from ISB Hyderabad, then started his own organization with disability and to help them get employment. And right now he's working with Deloitte. So, such a great journey, Sai. Uh, we are so honored today to have you here. I want you to share your journey and tell us something about yourself.
I was born in the south of India, in a place called Tiruchinappalli, and my father works for railways. And as soon as I was born, on the 13th day of the birth, there was an operation that had to be done, which led to the subsequent disabilities and complications. We moved to Hyderabad thereafter, and I've been spending the rest of my life in the Telangana state and the Hyderabad city. In terms of personality, well, my hobbies are listening to music, reading books, and of course, taking part in adventure sports. And that's something that will give you some context.
So, how was your childhood like here in India?
Yeah. So one of the things that most people need to understand is that, see, when you're a child with disability, as a child, you would not know that you have a disability. It is the parents who suffer a lot. The first time you ever even become aware of the fact that you have a disability is when you're excluded in sports or excluded from participation. So that is when you probably become aware of the challenges that are potentially turning up. I think if I split my life into three parts, let's say ages 1 to 16 and then 16 to 32 and thereafter. Ages 1 to 16, I think the major challenge was for my parents because they were aware of what was happening. My mother, especially, had to move into a new city where she had to learn the language from scratch. When you're with disability, the medical expenses pile up. So, when you're a lower middle class Indian, the challenges really go up. And, on top of that, when schools kind of refuse to admit you based on your disability, the complications only go up. But as a child, I didn't have a comprehension of what I was going to face. And I think for me, that was not a challenge, but I can sense how it could have been probably one of the most mind-numbing experiences for my parents. Classes number 16, sorry, age 16 to 32 is when I really understood why my life is going to be different, whether it be, getting lacking access to particular places or whether it be stereotypical views that could be potentially imposed or possibly opportunities that might have been turned down once people get to know the true nature of disability is where
Mhm.
the real impact of disability comes onto my life and it starts affecting not just mine, any person with disabilities mindset. And effectively, then you are looking for solutions, then you're looking for a support. And in the absence of that, people do tend to fall a little into sadness and the complications multiply. And already the parents have faced significant challenges. So the whole thing on one side will look very, very bleak.
Mhm.
But I think over a period of time, you get used to things. I think once you realize that not all problems need to be solved by intelligence, some need to be solved just by endurance. I think what happens is you learn to endure the problem. You will realize that certain questions in your head saying, why did it happen to me? Why exactly are these things happening only to me in my life? Those questions don't carry meaning anymore. I think there is a phase of life where you will indulge in that question for a long time, but after some time, you will realize that that doesn't really matter. And that's when you will really start to blossom and probably explore your full potential. So, just to answer, three phases 1 to 16, where my parents were very badly impacted. 16 to 32, where I felt, hey, I wish my life was a little different. But post that, I think it was much more easier because I learned to let go of certain thoughts which would affect otherwise be affecting me.
That's great. So, uh, as you said, like, 1 to 16, this is a very, sensitive topic that nobody talks about, that what parents go through. So, did it, lead you to make a perception about the society, or as a child, it did not really affect?
Just kind of setting some context, given the medical condition that I had, there was very little control over bladder functions and bowel movements. So what happened is that in the class, I would come across as a person who couldn't have control over the bladder functions, and therefore the class could end up stinking, or other parents of other children would worry that those children would pick up infections and so on and so forth. It is as a result of that the schools were politely telling me to look at another school, and that I couldn't really be educated in their school. So, what actually happens when that part is brought up is that on one hand, it deeply affects your parents. On the second hand, it never allows you to build strong friendships because you are changing schools every 8 months or 10 months. You are not sitting in the same bench as other people. You're the first to enter a class and the last to leave, and you don't tend to have a normal childhood. But I think the experience, like a child wouldn't know what stigma is unless and until the child is excluded. And I think the earliest memories of exclusion are from the point of view of not being included in sports. The children feeling, they should probably be not sitting next to me, and probably me not finding the space to express myself in various arenas, whether it be competitions that typically happen at school, or in team activities otherwise. So what happens is you grow up more and more introverted, and you do not realize that it was stigmatic unless and until you grow up. That you don't really have memories of good schools. So it's as if you have been taken as a child and you have been soaked in shame, but you don't really know what you are soaked into. It's only over a period of years that you realize that, hey, I didn't have a normal childhood, and it has affected my personality somewhat. And undoing that will take an even longer time because now you're never really sure as to, are you the personality that has been rejected, or are you introverted by nature? So effectively, it creates a lot of confusion in the child. But other than that, I think there are certain, if you start to look at it from a positive side, there are benefits to it also, because now you're constantly in new environments, you're constantly pushing yourself in situations where you do not know whether you will be attending the school next day. So effectively, you will learn to enjoy the uncertainty. And I think over a period of time, that had a role to play as well, because when I subsequently started to move to the US to pursue my master's, I knew that I can adapt to new situations. And, I do enjoy being and meeting new people and seeing what perspective they bring to the table. So I think as much as the disadvantages were there, I wouldn't do anything different in my life at this point, because the challenge is it was stigmatic, but you wouldn't know it. I think children are blessed with the fact that they don't have good memories. So it's very, very vital for parents to not constantly tell or make a big issue of things. Push the child into difficult moments and see how the child blossoms, because you have to bank on the fact that children don't remember well. So effectively, at least in my life, probably there were 5 or 6 bad incidents, and 3 or 4 really difficult days. But the overall aspect of the overall big picture, when you look at it, it did shape me really well. So I wouldn't do anything different at this point.
So that's such a great attitude to have, and you talked about having a positive side to whatever the situation was. So how did the all education part came into being? Like you going to US and deciding to do an MBA. So what sparked a change and led you pursue your dreams?
I think what happens when, so one of the blessings that I have had received in life, like I said, is once you are confined to smaller spaces and you can't really move, the only option that you have is to excel through education. There is no other option out. If you want to be
Hmm.
out there in the world and feel yourself heard, you got to be educated first. That was the first part. The second part is I grew up in an era where the technology was also turning up, the internet was turning up, the social media was going bonkers. So what happened is the combination of education and social media really allowed me a platform where people saw that there is more to this person than meets the eye. So effectively, that is where I started reaching out and knowing more. And in after my education, after I completed engineering from one of the leading colleges in the state, I realized that I do hold the potential to study well, and that it can make a big difference to my life if I can go and pursue a higher education. At the same time, spending 1 year at Infosys, having worked there, allowed me to witness how when a campus is accessible, I can sit on a wheelchair and really make my life easy for me. See, one of the toughest things for any person with disability, whether it be by birth or through, let's say, accident, is to
Hmm.
accept something as simple as sitting on a wheelchair. Because
Hmm.
in my case, for instance, the disability was progressive, and there was a phase where I could walk, then I used one crutches, two crutches, and then went on to a wheelchair. So effectively, I saw wheelchair as a sign of a defeat. Therefore, for a long time I was refusing sitting on it. But I realized that what you think at one particular point as a defeat could actually be the greatest blessing of your life. Because sitting on that wheelchair in Infosys and living for 4 months there in an accessible campus was a huge turnaround for me, because it allowed me to do so many things independently. And that was the moment I understood that the combination of technology, aiding devices, the internet, education can all come together and probably allow me to live 80% of a normal life. The 100% is never going to be met. So 80%, I can push that number to 80%. And then started researching more. YouTube came in, and I understood the US has good facilities, accessible facilities for people with disabilities. And from there
Hmm.
on, it was a matter of putting two and two together and convinced my parents after like multiple discussions, arguments, and things. And eventually, I made the decision to move. And that's how that journey happened.
That's so great to know. Specifically when you talk about accessible campuses, that this is something so basic and being ignored in general, because in general society does not understand that how it can make a huge impact to life of a person with disability. Coming back to 2010, when you started Sehasra, so what was the motivation behind it? You started your own organization. uh, was your thought process doing
So
that?
one of the things, apart from what we have discussed so far, is that the familial background was from a typical lower middle class background. So when I had to pursue my education abroad, the challenge was how do we raise money? And in one of a stroke of good fortunes, I went back to my undergrad college, where I had studied engineering, and I had graduated out of the college as one of the university toppers. And there I realized a pain point that people do not structure their careers over those 4 years. And while there are multiple opportunities available out there, a little bit of guidance could go a long way into structuring their preparation over the course of their years and education. So once I identified that pain point, I spoke to my college management, and initially I told them that I would do a 1 week session, and where I would go ahead and run them through what are the different opportunities that are actually available. And in exchange for that, I would go ahead and charge them a nominal amount that would vary anywhere between 100 rupees to 500 rupees to 3,000 rupees. So effectively, when 700 students attended it and we pooled a big amount together, that was the moment I realized that there was significant value in the idea. But here I was taking money out of college rather than giving it back. See, most alumni at least are encouraged to give back to college and not take from it. So
Hmm.
at that point, I had needed it, and college did come down to my rescue, and I made the money and went abroad. So when I came back, I realized that it is time to give back to the place that had given so much to me. So I not only restarted that venture again, this time, what we did was we pooled that money and we started giving it back as a scholarship to one of the students who would need it. We started identifying projects where we could fund that amount and we could enable people to explore their dreams and passions in a big way. So it started off at my college, where we looked at 700 students into 100 rupees per student. So it started at 70,000 rupees of scholarship. Then we started slowly expanding on weekends, where we do like 1 or 2 days of a session, or if you're doing 1 week session, We kind of do one mock placement day, and slowly we started reaching out to 50, 60 engineering colleges. And so far we have cut across 30 to 40,000 students who have listened to how to structure their career, who have explored the journey along with me and understood what are the career options available. And that again spun off into close to, I think by now we should have hit close to 1.4 to 1.5 crores worth scholarship that is given to close to 100 students. And it blossomed well. And yeah, that's we have, like I said, there are a lot of dots that connected. Nothing came out as planned, but the best part is that I and my friends had the ability to constantly put ourselves out there and see what happens if something is tried. And it was very funny over the years. The little dots that we put connected back, and it spiraled into the ventures that we had. So 80% of it is luck, 10% is us putting out there, and 10% is like just good friendships.
But that's such a great thing to know from you. What is one suggestion that you will want to give to people with disability who might be watching you today?
One of the toughest questions for any person with disability or otherwise also is trying to know answer to a question that does not have an answer. In other words, when you start wondering, why did this happen to me? Am I not a good person, or haven't I done the right thing, or whom have I hurt in the previous life that I'm suffering right now? These are questions that do not have answers. Point one. No matter how much you search psychologically, religiously, spiritually, no matter what, you're not going to find the right answer. Point one. And even if you find an answer to that question, even if you find an answer, it'll only end up as regret. In other words, if you are looking at why your life had ended up this way and you find an answer, that answer is only going to build a regret to you. So effectively, the greatest help you can do to yourself is to understand that some questions do not have an answer, and that life is not a problem to be solved but a reality to experience. So go out there, you're going to go ahead and have a different reality to experience. It's probably not going to be the same as someone else's reality, but it's not necessary that it should be same as someone else's. There are areas where you are going to struggle more than other people, but that is okay, because one, as such, life is going to be difficult. On top of that, if you are in search of meaningless questions, responses to meaningless questions, and on top of that, you are also trying to treat yourself or tell that you are equal to someone else just psychologically, I think you are building the burden that already exists on top of you. A great liberating thought for me always was to know that I cannot have answers to the questions as to why I ended up like this, but I can confidently explore the world to the best of my abilities. And while that reality might not be similar to someone else's, it is still a human experience at the end of the day, and that is what most matters. So, someone ever is looking for an answer to the question, why did it happen to me? I'd be like, stop searching for it. You're never going to find an answer.
Okay. That's a wise thought and a good suggestion. Making the conversation a little light. Now, I'll do a quick rapid fire kind of round with you. So, tell me your favorite books. Two books you would recommend.
Well, at the age 24, you should read Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. That is one book that I would absolutely love to read again and again. But at the age 30, I think you should read probably Asura by Anand Nilakantan, because you will get another perspective to Ravan's life. And then you will realize that each one has their own story and everybody is a hero in their story.
That's interesting. I will definitely pick that book. Asura, I've
Thank
not
you.
read
Thank
that.
you.
So, what's your favorite movie?
There's a beautiful movie. There's a movie called A Beautiful Mind, which I watched when I was class 11, when I was in class 11, class 12. And that was a huge inspiration to my life. Apart from that, there's another movie called Cinderella Man. So these are my two all-time favorite movies. Uh, Beautiful Mind and Cinderella Man.
Great. Two things in society in general that you would want to change. It not necessarily has to be specific to disability, but in general, two things that you think world should be working on right now.
I think if the lawyers can do a little more good job of holding people accountable for mistakes that have done, I think we would be much more fairer as a society. I could build something into the system currently. I think a little bit of more accountability, saying someone's head must be on the line if things are going wrong. I don't know whose head is on the line. So effectively, we are just shouting into empty space and saying that, hey, we are hurt, please do something about it. But if we
Hmm.
could catch hold of that person who can build accountability into the system, I'd really look forward. That's the first thought that's coming to my mind.
Okay. Great. So, Sai, this has been a very great, interaction with you today.
Thank you.
Before I close this up, I would want, to you see yourself, your journey heading maybe in, 5 years down the line. What would you want to do? Right now, you're with Deloitte. You're, working in technology. It's totally a, techie field. So, where do you see yourself, heading in life, and what would you want to pursue? Maybe, 5 to 10 years down the line.
Uh, I think one thing that has always been in the back of my mind is to put my parents' story out there, because I think the world deserves to know their story more than my story. I think one of the challenges in life for people is that the best ones never have the right voice to tell it out, and they don't get the audience as well. And the ones who get the audience aren't necessarily the best storytellers. I think I have been fortunate enough to see my parents' life and see and show and learn that no matter what, love from a family can go ahead and turn around lives. I want people to know that my story is not the story of luck, but it's the story of love and endurance put together over a long period of time to create the miracle that it is. So 5 years from now, if I could accomplish something, it would be to at least write a book and get their story out so that they are immortalized for the effort that they have put in on me.
Excellent. We will be definitely, looking forward to that book and
Thank you.
probably ping 5 years down the line
Yeah,
to check
sure,
if the
sure.
book is in progress or not. Uh,
Hold me accountable.
Thank you so much for
No,
joining us today. This is a
def-
new series that we have started, and we look forward to, bring journey of people, who are excelling well and who can motivate and give a positive outlook to life, specifically with people with disability. So thank you so
thank
much
you.
for doing this with us,
Thank
and
you, sir.
here we
It's a
close.
great initiative, and thank you so much for inviting me. I hope more and more people come in and listen to this, and I wish you all the success also.
Thank you so much.